Hi everyone. Thank you for joining this new session of the Supply Chain Leaders webinar series. Today, we have the chance to learn from the experience of FuturMaster experts. FuturMaster is one of the world's leading providers of end-to-end supply chain planning solutions. Thank you to the speaker, Gilles Lefebvre, who is Product Manager at FuturMaster. The presentation will last 30 minutes and will be followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. So please do not hesitate to post your questions throughout the webinar in the Q&A section of your screen. And now I'm going to hand it over to Gilles to start the presentation.
Thank you, Cindy. Hi, everyone. So I'm Gilles Lefebvre. I'm product manager at FuturMaster. In this role, I'm taking care of the roadmap definition. I follow the development and I participate to the go-to-market activities when we have new release to launch. And today I'm going to speak about the new product introduction, and we'll see especially how the machine learning can help on these activities. So in the agenda, first, we will see what is the context and what are the challenges in the new product introduction. So what is the landscape? We'll see then how the machine learning can help, how we implemented this in FuturMaster. And as a conclusion, then I will come back and speak about the key benefits we can observe. Let's start with the context first. From different research, we can observe that every year, more than 30,000 products are introduced in the CPG market. So it's really a huge number, but only 10 to 20% of this launch are successful. So it's really a challenge. From different analyses, we can see that 80 to 90% are failure. In this context, it's really important to help the teams to do the forecast of the new product to launch in the market and to provide insights. But why companies have to launch so many products in the market? So the first point is about the change in the consumer's area. And I think we all experience that in our personal life. More and more consumers are looking for new experiences first, but also personalized experiences. I have two examples for you to illustrate these personalized experiences. The first one is about the brand Withings. I don't know if you know Withings. It's a company selling products around a healthy connected product like weighing devices, connected watches, and so on. And last month, they launched a new product, a new watch, connected watch. And this watch can be completely customized by the consumer. There are more than 6,000 combinations. You can decide what will be the color of the watch strap, what is the color of the pointer, but also the size, the form, and so on. So in the end, you can really have the product you like and the product the others don't have. So that's the expectation from consumers today. But on top of this personalized experience, they also expect to have this product now, at best, or in 1 hour in a shop, or at least at latest tomorrow, but not later. That was the first example I wanted to share. Then the second example is more related to cosmetics, and this picture we can see. Tomorrow, if it's not yet the case, you will have the possibility to go in a shop of cosmetic and completely personalize your product. For example, with the serigraphy, you could print your name or the name of your friend you will offer the gift. So a completely personalized experience. So that's for the expectations of consumers, and companies have also to introduce new products in the market to remain competitive, because competitors are doing this personalization and are launching new products. So to be on the market and this changing market, companies always need to introduce new products. They must ensure also new sales throughout the year, and it's especially the case when they have to manage short lifecycle products. And globally, they have to renew their portfolio, at least to maintain their market share, but also to improve it. The consequences for the supply chain are huge, and there are many, many challenges around this. First, that's the number of references to manage, and it becomes really a nightmare for the teams to manage so many references. It has an impact on the cost of stock because you have lots of references, you want to have a good service level, so you increase the stock, and this stock has a cost. For the SKUs with an expiration date, there is a risk of obsolescence. If it's not a risk of destruction in the end, then the cost associated to this destruction. And finally, there is also the risk of not delivering the product because the demand planner has so many SKUs to take care about. This large number introduces a risk of not delivering the product because it's not at the right place at the right time. The product introduction is a process driven by a team. It's really a team project when a new product must be introduced. It's sales, marketing, demand planning, all are involved for a successful launch. And that's to support this kind of collaboration. That's why we have a dedicated module for that in FuturMaster. But here, let's focus on the role of the demand planner in this collaborative process. The first step is the investigation phase. And the demand planner in this first phase will have to categorize the poor SKUs, the poor markets, and also identify the opportunities in the performing SKUs and markets. The second step is the feasibility. The demand planner in this area will evaluate the different opportunities, the risk of the different scenarios, and also analyze the impacts on the business. Because introducing a new product can have huge impact on the business and on other areas. You could have cannibalization effect of other products and so on. So that's really evaluating the different scenarios. Then we select the plan and we develop this plan. So we evaluate the demand and we do the planning then. During the development phase, it's only fine-tuning this plan, making sure that everything is ready for the launch. And finally, during the launch period, the demand planner has really to monitor every day the sales of the new product introduced in the market to make sure that everything is aligned with what was expected. And if it's not the case, to react. So the demand planner can reallocate some products from one region to another one, or if the sales are not as expected globally, they could push for promotions to push the product in the market. With this context and all these challenges, companies have high-level expectations around demand planning. First, they want to have good forecast accuracy, always better forecast accuracy, as the forecast accuracy is a prerequisite for then a state-of-the-art supply chain execution. Then they also need to understand what is the risk. We have seen that 10 to 20% of the launch are successful, only 10 to 20%. So when the teams have a forecast, they need to see what is the degree of confidence in this forecast to understand what is the risk and mitigate this risk. Then, when we have the first sales, so it's like demand sensing, we need to update the forecast with the latest data. So taking advantage of the first sales during the first period and update this forecast. The last thing is data intelligibility. It's understanding the result, understanding this forecast. And again, it's related to the confidence we can have in this forecast. So that was for the context and challenges. Let's see now how the machine learning can help. And first, I'm going to speak about the clustering, which is a machine learning method we can use. Everything starts with the products and the sales history of these past products. And then the system will create some clusters. The clusters are a group of products with a similar sales profile in the past during their launch period. In this example, the cluster 1 is a group of products with this profile. Cluster 2, it's this profile. Cluster 3, it's this profile. So it's really the past product, we group them together, we create clusters with similar sales profile. Then the system will analyze the product characteristics in these clusters. So what are the predominant characteristics? Again, in my example, that's the characteristic number 3, which is mainly represented in the cluster 1. That's the characteristic number 1 for the cluster 2 and the 4th for cluster 3. Then comes the time to introduce a new product in the market. And this new product has characteristics as well. And according to these characteristics, the system will assign this product to a cluster. Here it's the characteristic number 3. So the system is going to assign it to the cluster 1 because it was the predominant characteristic in this cluster. So here it's a basic example, quite a simple example. But just to explain what is clustering and how it works. Here, the result is a sales profile, so it's not yet a forecast. It's all is normalized, so it's only the form of the curves of the sales during the launch period. Also, I mentioned that the system is going to assign this cluster 1, this product to the cluster 1. In fact, it's not so simple. The system will say there are maybe 80% of chance for these products to belong to the cluster 1. It could be 35% for cluster 1, 34% for cluster 2, and 31% for cluster 3. So it could be well balanced between the clusters, or we can be sure that it's more cluster 1 if it's 80%. So that's the result we can get from clustering. The output is a sales profile. Then, in a second stage, the machine learning can also help around the prediction, the calculation of the sales quantity during the launch period. Again, the system will take all the historic of data to calculate the volume of sales during the launch period. And applying the sales profile plus this sales quantity, then we come up with a forecast. And finally, the machine learning can be used to take advantage of the latest data, of the latest sales. So the system will be able to propose to change the cluster if finally it was not the relevant one, or adjust the volume. So that's how the machine learning can help. Now let's see how we implemented this in FuturMaster, has this feature is available from the version 8.3, which is available from this week. First, the process, and in fact, that's exactly what I described earlier. We have two main steps, the clustering first, then the forecast. So the clustering definition, it's the creation of the different clusters. So we take all the products in the past, group them according to their sales profile, and we can here define if we want to have a fixed number of clusters. Maybe we want to have 10 clusters because then it's difficult to manage, or we can let the system define the best number of clusters according to the different sales profile the system will find. Then here we have the assignment of the new product to the relevant cluster. So according to the product characteristics, the system will propose which cluster with a certain percentage of confidence. Then the forecast. So that's the calculation of the volume and the application of the sales profile to get the forecast. And finally, the adjustment. We can adjust the cluster according to the first sales after a few periods of sales. And we can also update the forecast, so the volume globally. In this process, if we go again deeper in the implementation, we have two main steps. The model training and the model application. It's quite usual for machine learning. We need to train models and then we can apply them. Training a model can take time, but it's not something we will do every day. It's something we will do every few months. If we are in a seasonal activity, we could do this training every 3 months. We could do it every 6 months or every year. It depends really on how we want to take advantage of the recent launch to improve the model. As an input, we will take all the characteristics of the products, of the customers, of the nodes, so the launch, and all the sales historic. That's the input for the machine learning. And as an output, the system will calculate the sales profiles of the clusters and group the products in different clusters. Then the application. So the application is use the model to calculate the forecast. And this, you can do it when you want. It's immediate. So as soon as we have a new product to introduce in the market, we can launch a calculation. As soon as we adjust some data, we can update it. It's immediate. Again, as an input, we have all the characteristics of the product, the customer, and the launches. And as an output, we have the assignment of a product to a cluster and the calculation of the sales forecast. So in the end, we have really the forecast during the launch period. I wanted here to show you the result, and here it's mainly the result of the clustering part, so the creation of the different clusters. It's an example, a real example with one of our customers. And the system calculated in this context 12 different clusters, so 12 different sales profiles. That's something we share directly in the application. And for the demand planner and the team in general, it was already a huge insight for them. Because first it was automatically calculated, and they realized that the replenishment strategy was not relevant in different cases. For example, their replenishment strategy is mainly before the launch order 80% of the quantity and plan a reordering later, few weeks later, of 20%. But if we have a look at the cluster 1, so product with this sales profile, it's not relevant because few weeks later, then there are no sales. So no need to reorder 20%. Doesn't make sense. The same for cluster 12. The growth is very progressive. So no need to order directly 80% of the quantity. So that's insight we can share with these techniques, and it was very much appreciated. What I wanted to highlight here is that very often with machine learning, we have the idea of a black box. That's not the case with this method. We explain to the user what are the different sales profiles. We explain the degree of confidence of a product to belong to one or the other cluster. So it's not a black box at all. So that was for the integration in FuturMaster. And now, as a conclusion, I wanted to share some benefits. First, the better forecast accuracy. As I mentioned, it was really much appreciated by our customer. And in their context, most of the time, in fact, 70% of the time, the system assigned the product to the right cluster directly. So it means that directly, they had a good sales profile for the product. It doesn't mean that in 30% of the case, it was totally wrong. Again, I will come back just here to show some profiles. You see, between this one and this one, it's not so far. So the forecast is not wrong if we are not exactly in the right sales profile. The second key benefit was the automation. Because in the past, people could do the calculation manually, the calculation of the sales profile. But now it's determined automatically. Also, there is an automatic proposition for the new product to belong to a cluster. In the past, it was manually done thanks to assumption from the demand planner. So now it's automatic. And the forecast calculation is automatic as well. The other key benefit, and I already mentioned that's the data intelligibility. The user will understand why a product is part of a cluster. What are the characteristics of this product for belonging to this cluster? The user will have all the information about the different sales profile proposed, and he can also take the end because it's not because the system proposed something that we can't change. In the example I explained before, if I have three possible clusters, it's 35, 34, 31%. It's really balanced, but the user can bring his knowledge in the process and say, no, I trust by experience that it will be more the cluster 2. And finally,
Sorry about that. It seems like we are having some internet issues. We'll be back in 5 seconds.
hope you can hear me okay now. Just for the conclusion about agility, reactivity, adaptiveness. the system is going to propose to change the cluster if the launch is not behaving as expected. So that's really a key benefit as well. So it seems we have sound issues, but we will try to manage Q&A.
Thank you, Gilles, for this great presentation and for sharing your insights with us today. So we received many questions from the attendees, and we are going to try to respond to as many as possible during this 15-minute Q&A session. So the first one is, in which business sector is AI used to better forecast NPI?
There is no dedicated sector, in fact. As soon as we have the past sales, the product characteristics, customers, and launch characteristics, I think we can use these techniques, these methods.
Okay. Can we implement machine learning straight after implementing an APS?
I would say it's not necessary after. It can be a direct implementation of this kind of method because it brings value for the forecast directly.
Okay. Do we need a data scientist internally to implement machine learning?
There's no need for having internally a data scientist. In fact, the data science research are done by us, so it's already done. And then for the implementation of the new product launch introduction machine learning method, it's only a question of having all the data. So it's more data analyst rather than data scientist.
Okay. I'm launching a new product in 2 years. Can machine learning help me right now, or should I wait? And if so, how long?
No, you can take advantage of the machine learning right now. Then the question will be, for this product, did you launch in the past similar products? Do you have all the history? And also all the qualified history, because it's not only a question of having the sales in the past, it's also knowing what kind of activities I did around the launch, what was the characteristics of the products, and so on.
And how long does it take to clean your data to prepare machine learning usage?
It depends really on the context of the customers. We have different experiences. Some of our customers are quite ready for projects like that because they have all the data from the past. For others, they have to collect this data, they have to clean the data. It can take time, but I don't have one answer.
Mm-hmm. Do you foresee other use cases where the clustering method could be applied?
So yes, definitely yes. We explore this method for other use cases. Still, similar to the launch of new product, we could have also what about opening a new shop, a new point of sale? So we could be in the same area. We also imagine to use the clustering for the sales profile during the promotions. So during the operation of promotions, we could also use this kind of method. And in fact, we are doing some research with good results. So we will share this later.
Okay. Maybe could you explain again how you select a cluster in the case of a product launch, as it is a new product by definition?
Maybe I can come back here. So first, in our context, we are in the launch of a new product, but it's not a completely new product, I mean, it's not like when the first iPhone was launched in the market, because before the iPhone, we never had this kind of phone. So you need to have all the history about similar products in the past. And here, we will take advantage of the history of the product characteristics, but also the customers and the launch characteristics. What I mean by that is taking advantage of products. It can be the color of the product, is it for men or women, the size, and so on. And then we will first identify what is the sales profile of the different groups. And then, according to the characteristics of the product, assign this product to a group. So it was here the characteristic number 3 in my example, which is predominant in the product part of the cluster 1.
Okay, and so you mentioned the characteristics of the launch as inputs for machine learning. Could you give some examples of characteristics?
Yes, characteristics of the launch. It can be first characteristics of the regions where we did this launch. It could be also how did we support this launch? Did we have some advertisement or not? How many point of sales were concerned by this launch? All this information are key to predict then the behavior of the future launch.
Okay. What about the introduction of a completely new product with no similar product launched in the past? Do you think this technique could help?
That's what I mentioned with the iPhone. I think this technique, the first input is really the past sales and past experience. And for a completely new product introduction, we never sold this in the past. I don't think it would be helpful in this area. I think techniques like marketing techniques like A/B testing and so on would be still relevant.
Okay. Sales can be influenced by the consumer's culture and nationality. Does the model take this into account?
I would say yes, because as I mentioned, the characteristics of the launch, the characteristics of the customers, and so the region are taken into account. So if there are some cultural aspect, some nationality aspect, yes, they are taken into account because it will be reflected in the geography of the launch.
Okay. What effort is required from FuturMaster and internal demand planner after installing version 8.3?
It will be a quite smooth update because it's mainly new features like this. And also we will do a dedicated communication. So you will have soon the detail. Then about the effort to implement it, it depends on always on how far you want to take advantage of the new features. So for example, is it only an update to take advantage of the improvements, or is it implementing 8.3 to take advantage of this new method? And then the time and the effort won't be the same, of course.
Are there any rules to define the attributes of the products? Because the attribute quantity is quite huge.
The more we have, the best. And that's what we experience with the customer where we develop this. They started with very few characteristics. The results were good, but not so good. And we continued to improve the result with more and more data. And as soon as we can't predict the behavior of a product to assign it directly to the right cluster, it means that we don't take the data influencing this behavior. So the more the data we have, the best it is.
Thank you again very much, Gilles, for your presentation today, and thank you to the attendees for joining. We are very much interested in having your feedback on this webinar, so please take a couple of minutes to fill in the evaluation survey that you will be receiving shortly. You will also receive the recording of the webinar by email this week. And last but not least, our next Supply Chain Leaders webinar will be on the 25th of June and will be presented by Fleury Michon, the French leader in deli meats and catering products. It will be focusing on how they adjusted their supply chain to support service excellence and growth. Thank you again to everyone for joining today, and we wish you a very good day or evening.